where a significant policy U-turn is being tracked today. President Donald Trump boasted in early 2025 that America might be self-sufficient and not rely on imports. As time has gone on, that promise has stalled. A recent executive order subtly lowers duties on important imports, including chemicals, pharmaceuticals, nickel, and graphite, acknowledging that domestic production is just unable to keep up. This reversal is an abstract survival strategy for automakers whose supply chains span continents. Which products were listed as exempt? Who stands to gain? And how will it alter global commerce and auto prices? Let's get started. The reversal of tariffs. What has actually changed? President Trump has drastically changed his position on tariffs, issuing an executive order that lowers taxes on dozens of necessary imports. He claimed only a few months ago that America could prosper without imports. However, reality has compelled a new melody. The government welcomes the U.S. for the first time in his second term. S cannot rely solely on essential resources to meet its demand. Nickel, gold, natural graphite, medicinal compounds, and important industrial chemicals are among the more than 45 categories of commodities that are exempt from previous tariffs under the directive. The list also includes LEDs and specialty magnets that are essential for EV batteries and renewable energy. These breaks aren't free, though. Benefits will only accrue to aligned partners who are prepared to make reciprocal agreements. Automakers prioritize countries like the EU and Japan. This is not a footnote to the policy. It is a matter of survival. Without these ingredients, cars cannot be produced on assembly lines, demonstrating how easily political rhetoric may give way to practical business needs. And if you think that's a policy reversal, just wait until you realize how reliant on foreign resources the United States is. 2. Import dependency and deficits in raw materials. Import dependency and deficits in raw materials. Trump's tariff shift is based on the fact that America is inevitably dependent on foreign raw materials. The United States uses a lot of metals and minerals that are just not available domestically, exposing important sectors to risk. This is especially true in the auto industry, where electrification necessitates resources that America does not have. Graphite. One such example is the core of EV batteries. The United States utilized 52,000 tons in 2024, but generated none. Even non-Chinese graphite frequently goes through Chinese operations before reaching American firms, since China not only supplies the majority, but also controls more than 90% of worldwide processing. Nickel shares a comparable tale. Despite a single Michigan mining and limited household recycling, allies like Canada and Australia provide the majority of the supplies, with processing carried out overseas once more. Even aluminum and gold produced in the United States cannot meet domestic demand, necessitating imports from countries like Brazil and Jamaica. These disparities result in increased expenses and uncertainty for automakers. Dependency is still America's industrial weakness, even if tariffs change. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons before we continue. It motivates us to continue providing you with the most recent information for both policy enthusiasts and gearheads. Since the automakers bear the most burden, let's shift our focus from supply chains to the manufacturers themselves. Under pressure from tariffs, automakers are giving in. Under pressure from tariffs, automakers are giving in. Automakers are more affected by tariff instability than any other industry. From global brands having factories in the United States to Detroit's Big Three. The cost of manufacturing automobiles has been completely upended. Automobiles rely on thousands of components, many of which go across international borders. Consequently, expenses escalate when tariffs accumulate. Steel and aluminum levies increased to 50% this year, while car duties increased to 25%. According to analysts, these policies will result in additional expenses for U.S. automakers of $108 billion by 2025. That adds about $5,000 to each automobile made in the United States, and more than $8,500 to cars made abroad. Devastating numbers in a sector with extremely narrow profit margins. Numerous automakers have so far taken the hit, reducing earnings, modifying trims, and hiding costs in the fine print instead of shocking customers. However, the plan isn't sustainable. Prices will increase, particularly for EVs and luxury vehicles, dependent on external components. Executives are still divided. Trump's exemptions provide some respite, but others caution that frequent changes in policy impede long-term planning. Additionally, the global chessboard of trade partners reveals who truly wins and loses, even while automakers are immediately feeling the pinch. 4. Collaborators, agreements, and mutual exchange. Deals, partners, and mutual trade. One thing is evident from Trump's executive order. Only aligned partners who are prepared to make reciprocal concessions are eligible for tariff exemptions, which are leverage rather than freebies. This creates a rush of trade as nations compete to obtain advantageous conditions before their industries are marginalized. These agreements may be the difference between automakers being excluded from the U.S. market or offering competitive prices. With swift action, the European Union and Japan negotiated agreements that lowered auto tariffs to about 15%. South Korea pledged new U.S. investment after securing automobile relief. India was previously hit with a 50% fine for its connections to Russian oil. Charges could shortly drop to 10% to 15%. Taiwan, which is asking for relief from its 20% tax, also claims improvement. For international automakers preparing for the future, this patchwork strategy creates uncertainty while rewarding those at the table. The industry must navigate an unstable trading environment as a result of unpredictable tariffs that convert long-term strategy into a gamble. However, these changes affect the one group that is most immediately impacted: consumers, even outside of international discussions. Costs, customers, and future prospects. 5. Customers, expenses, and future prospects. Every tariff change ultimately affects the balance sheets of automakers and the wallets of customers. Vehicle expenses are increased by duties on metals and parts. Although automakers have so far taken the brunt of the blow, pressure is growing as interest rates continue to put pressure on consumers, and additional tariff costs run the risk of making many models unaffordable without prompt exemptions. Customers may have to wait longer, pay more, and have fewer options. Automakers are trying out different approaches, diversifying sourcing, investigating recycling, or growing U.S. plants. However, these repairs take years. It is not possible to rewire the industry's global supply chains overnight because they were established over decades. The showroom is also politicized by tariffs. Depending on trade discussions, the price tags of an American truck with imported parts, a Japanese hybrid, or a German sedan could soon fluctuate significantly. Additionally, under the new Section 232 probes hanging over everything from wind turbines to polysilicon, there will only be more uncertainty. Although the tariff U-turn may give some breathing room, the future is still uncertain. And with all these variables, what is the overall conclusion for both drivers and automakers? Conclusion: performance costs, imports, and incentives. Conclusion: performance costs, imports, and incentives. The volatility of the previous year is not eliminated by this tariff reversal. It is reframed. Washington has acknowledged that imports are essential to contemporary manufacturing, particularly in the auto industry. Although exemptions might loosen the chokehold, the industry remains vulnerable until agreements are finalized and domestic refining increases. The showrooms will be divided. While vehicles reliant on penalized inputs continue to fluctuate, those connected to privileged supply chains will stabilize. 3 dials will determine the future for consumers: where parts are obtained, what agreements are finalized, and the rate of expansion of domestic infrastructure. Whether the dials move in the proper direction, options increase and prices decline. Otherwise, wait lists, returns, and market adjustments reappear and trims disappear. Brands that can strike a balance between torque at the bargaining table and torque under the hood will emerge victorious. What do you think then? Do these shifting tariffs simply punt the can down the road, or do they provide American automakers some breathing room? Will customers accept price increases, or will a cooling economy cause demand to stagnate? And do you think international partners will continue to cooperate, or will trade wars soon shift into a new phase? Leave a comment below with your opinions. Please share your thoughts on how you envision this unfolding. Additionally, remember that to be updated on the newest car news, subscribe to Piston Pundit. Subscribe to Piston Pundit.